Welcome, weary traveler, to a journey through time, a gentle drift into the past where the echoes of a bygone era can lull you into a peaceful slumber. Tonight, we'll explore the intricate tapestry of daily life within the Soviet Union, not through the lens of thrilling espionage or dramatic political upheaval, but through the quiet, often mundane rhythms that shape the existence of millions. Imagine, if you will, a world where the familiar comforts of your own home are subtly yet profoundly different. A world where privacy is a concept reimagined and community, in its most literal sense, is woven into the very fabric of existence. As you settle deeper into your pillows, letting the day's concerns recede, allow your mind to wander with me back to a time and place that, while perhaps unfamiliar, holds a quiet fascination. Our journey begins in the early 1950s, a period of profound transition in the Soviet Union. The colossal shadow of Joseph Stalin, which had loomed over the nation for decades, has just begun to recede. Yet, his legacy, like a deep-rooted tree, continues to cast its influence over every aspect of life. We find ourselves in Leningrad, a city of grand imperial architecture and a resilient spirit, still bearing the scars of the Great Patriotic War. The air is crisp, carrying the subtle scent of damp earth and distant industry, a common companion in the northern climes. The central heating, a modern marvel, is often inconsistent, leaving a gentle chill in the morning air that encourages a deeper burrow into the blankets. Perhaps you can almost feel the cool air on your face, the warmth of your breath creating fleeting clouds in the quiet room. In this communal apartment, known as a kommunalka, the concept of personal space takes on a unique dimension. Here, families share not just walls, but kitchens, bathrooms, and often the very air they breathe. Your family, fortunate among many, occupies a single room, a modest space of perhaps 150 square feet. This room is your world, a bedroom, a dining area, a reception hall for guests, and a storage unit for all your earthly possessions. The furniture, practical and sturdy, often serves multiple purposes. A narrow bed, for instance, transforms into a couch during the day, a testament to the ingenuity born of necessity. Your parents sleep on a fold-out bed on the opposite wall, and a small table, cleared for meals, stands between them. Clothing hangs on hooks, for closets and dressers are luxuries reserved for a different life, a different system. Privacy, in this setting, is not an expectation, but a rare and cherished moment, a fleeting whisper in the bustling symphony of shared living. The morning ritual in a kommunalka is a delicate dance of timing and consideration. The shared bathroom, a hub of activity for 8 families, demands strategic planning. Too early, and the cold might bite. Too late, and a queue forms, threatening punctuality for work or school. An unwritten schedule, a silent agreement among residents, allocates precious minutes to each family, 15 minutes perhaps, to complete the essential morning ablutions, a quick use of the toilet, a splash of water on the face, a hurried brush of teeth. You gather your toiletry kit, a small pouch containing your personal essentials, and your towel, each item carefully guarded, a small bastion of individuality. Opening your door with practiced quietness, you step into the long, dimly lit corridor, a single yellow bulb casting a soft, amber glow. The parquet flooring, once elegant, now bears the worn patina of decades of footsteps. Each scuff marks a silent testament to the countless lives lived within these walls. The wallpaper, peeling in places, reveals layers beneath, like an archaeological dig, each stratum a different era of Soviet history. The air, a blend of stale tobacco and the lingering scent of cabbage from last night's dinner, is a familiar comfort. Today the bathroom door is closed, a common sight. You join the silent vigil behind Dmitry Petrovich, the factory foreman, whose room is near the entrance. He offers a gruff nod, his face still softened by sleep, his gray stubble catching the weak light. Nikolai's in there, he mutters, referring to the elderly widow who, despite her sparse hair, seems to command an inordinate amount of time in the bathroom. Been 10 minutes already. A sigh escapes your lips, a shared understanding of the daily negotiation that defines life in the Kommunalka. This is normal. This is life. While you wait, your gaze drifts to the informal schedule posted near the kitchen entrance, a system designed to manage the shared cooking times, especially in the evenings when everyone converges on the single gas stove. The kitchen itself is a fascinating blend of the communal and the personal. Each family has its designated shelf in the shared refrigerator, its own cabinet for dry goods, and often its own portable burner to supplement the main stove, a testament to the constant, subtle struggle for autonomy within the shared space. Finally, the door opens, and a cloud of steam billows out as Nikolai emerges, her thin hair wrapped in a towel. She offers a curt nod as she passes, and Dmitry Petrovich, with a small gesture of kindness, allows you to go ahead, his need less urgent than yours. These small acts of consideration, often unspoken, are the threads that hold the community together. The bathroom, though basic, is a welcome sight. A stained tub with a shower attachment, a chain-pull toilet, a cracked sink. But today, a small miracle. The hot water is actually hot, a good omen for the day ahead. You move quickly, keeping one eye on your watch, acutely aware of the precious minutes ticking by. 7 minutes, 8. You must leave enough time for others. Back in your family's room, your mother is already awake. The small electric burner, technically forbidden but universally owned, heating water for tea. This is chai, the lifeblood of any Russian morning, served from the samovar, a family heirloom that has miraculously survived the Revolution, the Civil War, the Purges, and the Great Patriotic War. Hurry, she says, her voice gentle but firm. Your father has already left for the breadline, another daily ritual. 3 times a week, he rises before dawn to secure fresh bread, a reliable pleasure of Soviet life, kept affordable by the state but demanding a willingness to wait. On his assigned days, he brings enough for your family and for the Knyazevs down the hall. On alternate days, Mr. Knyazev reciprocates. These unofficial arrangements, these systems of mutual aid, are the quiet mechanisms of survival. Your mother hands you a cup of strong black tea and a bowl of kasha, buckwheat porridge, sweetened with a precious spoonful of sugar. You eat quickly, standing the routine so ingrained it requires no conscious thought. They're saying there might be oranges at the gastronome today. Your mother remarks, referring to the state food shop 3 blocks away, I'll try to go during my lunch break. Oranges. The word itself evokes a sense of the exotic, a burst of vibrant color in the monochrome winter. These southern fruits, making their way to Leningrad from Soviet Georgia or sometimes even from abroad, appear rarely. Their scarcity makes them special, a symbol of hope and a taste of something beyond the everyday. If your mother is lucky enough to secure some, one will be saved for a special occasion, perhaps even New Year's, still months away. You finish your tea, grab your heavy wool coat, practical, not fashionable, and prepare to face the day. Before leaving, you check your reflection in the small mirror near the door. Your clothes are clean and presentable, if not stylish. Style in the Soviet 1950s is a luxury, especially for ordinary workers. Functionality triumphs over fashion. Outside the apartment, the stairwell is a cavern of dim light, permeated by the faint, comforting sense of cabbage and tobacco. The elevator, installed sometime in the 1930s, has been broken for as long as anyone can remember, a silent monument to a past era of progress. You descend 5 flights, your footsteps echoing in the quiet stairwell, a rhythmic cadence accompanying your thoughts. The street greets you with a blast of cold air. October in Leningrad marks the beginning of the long descent into winter, a season of muted colors and hushed landscapes. The sky is the color of wet cement and a light drizzle falls. Not quite rain, but enough to dampen your spirits and your coat. People hurry along the sidewalks, collars turned up, heads bowed against the elements, a collective movement of resilience. The tram stop is a huddled mass of workers, each a silent participant in the morning commute. When the tram finally arrives, it is already full, yet with a strange, unspoken understanding. Everyone manages to squeeze aboard, bodies pressed together in an intimate proximity that no one acknowledges. The tram rattles through the streets of Leningrad, a symphony of creaks and groans, past the grand buildings of the imperial era, now subdivided into communalcas like your own, past newer apartment blocks, hastily constructed after the war to address the desperate housing shortage. The city itself is a living history, a layer cake of architectural styles, Baroque palaces alongside constructivist workers' clubs, alongside classical Stalinist architecture. Through the fogged windows you catch fleeting glimpses of the city awakening, lines already forming outside shops, women with string bags hoping for a delivery of something worth buying, street sweepers in orange vests clearing the previous day's debris, posters on walls proclaiming the success of the latest 5-year plan, depicting happy workers exceeding their quotas, their faces alight with socialist fervor. The reality inside the tram, however, is less enthusiastic. Faces are tired, resigned to another day of work in factories or offices where initiative is rarely rewarded, and meeting the plan is what truly matters, not actual productivity or innovation. Yet, there is a certain security in this predictability. Everyone has a job, everyone has a place, however humble. At your stop, you navigate the crowded aisle, mumbling, "Excuse me," and "Pardon," as you step on toes and brush against damp coats. Outside again, you join the stream of workers heading toward the factory gates. The Kirov Works spreads out before you, a sprawling complex of buildings where thousands of workers produce machinery for the Soviet state. Smokestacks release plumes into the gray sky, and the sound of metal on metal creates a constant industrial backdrop. The factory is a city unto itself, with its own rhythms and hierarchies. At the gate, you show your papers to the guard, who barely glances at them. He sees you every day, after all. Inside, you head to your section, nodding to colleagues along the way. The changing room is humid, with the body heat of workers removing street clothes and donning work attire. Conversation is muted, practical. Who has heard about a shipment of winter boots coming to the department store? Whose child is sick? Which section of the factory might exceed its quota this month? Earning everyone a bonus. Your locker contains your work clothes, sturdy pants, a thick shirt, protective gear for your specific job. You change quickly. The workday waits for no one, and tardiness can mean trouble with a shift supervisor or worse, attention from the party representative who keeps an eye on worker discipline. The factory floor is already humming with activity when you arrive at your station. The noise is immediate and enveloping, machines pounding, metal screeching against metal, the shouts of foremen making themselves heard above the din. The air is thick with the smell of oil and hot metal and the sweat of hundreds of workers. Your job is precise and repetitive, operating a lathe that shapes metal components for tractors. These tractors will go to collective farms across the Soviet Union, part of the endless drive to mechanize agriculture and increase production. You take pride in your work, despite the monotony. There's something satisfying about seeing the raw metal transformed into a useful part, about knowing your hands have created something that will help feed the country. The morning passes in the familiar rhythm of work. Your hands move almost without conscious thought, muscle memory taking over. Your mind wanders, as it often does, to dreams and plans, maybe saving enough for a radio, maybe one day getting your own apartment through the factory housing list, though the wait is years long. Maybe seeing your name on the board of top workers, earning a little extra money and respect. Around you, the great machine of Soviet industry grinds on. Workers at their stations, each a cog in the vast apparatus of the state economy, quotas to meet, plans to fulfill, the new Soviet man and woman building socialism through labor. But the reality is more complex than the propaganda posters suggest. You see how corners are cut when materials run short, how quality is sacrificed for quantity when the end of the month approaches and quotas loom, how the official numbers reported upward bear little resemblance to what's actually produced. You see, too, the small resistances, workers slowing down when supervisors aren't watching, saving their energy, the jokes whispered during breaks, subtle mockeries of the system everyone depends on but few fully believe in anymore, the informal networks that ensure you can get the parts you need when official channels fail. This is the double reality of Soviet life in the 1950s. The official story of socialist progress marching ever forward, and the lived experience of ordinary people navigating shortages, bureaucracy, and the thousand small frustrations of daily existence. Mid-morning, the factory horn sounds for the first break, 10 minutes to stretch, to grab a quick smoke for those who do, to exchange a few words with colleagues. The factory cafeteria is open, serving weak tea and basic snacks. Some workers bring their own food from home, a sandwich perhaps, or leftover kasha from breakfast. You step outside for a moment, grateful for the fresh air, despite the drizzle. The factory yard is gray concrete, but beyond the walls you can see the city, and beyond that, glimpses of the Baltic Sea. Even through the industrial haze, there's a certain beauty to Leningrad, the city built by Peter the Great as Russia's window to the west, the city that survived 900 days of Nazi siege during the war. The horn sounds again, break over, back to the machines, back to the quotas, back to building the socialist future, one tractor part at a time. The day stretches ahead, predictable in its demands, yet full of the small human dramas that unfold in any workplace. And as you return to your station, adjusting your protective goggles and checking your tools, you're part of something larger than yourself, a vast experiment in creating a different kind of society. For better or worse, the Soviet system has its deep flaws, its repressions and shortages, its contradictions between ideology and reality, but it also provides a basic security, a sense of belonging that many find comforting in an uncertain world. The lathe spins up again, metal shavings curling away from the blade. Another component takes shape under your practiced hands. Another small piece of the Soviet economy slides into place. The morning shift continues, each hour marked by the factory clock that everyone watches with the same intensity. Time moves differently here, stretching out during the long hours of work, then suddenly accelerating as the end of the shift approaches. There's a rhythm to factory life, as predictable as the seasons, yet never quite the same from day to day. You work steadily, your mind half on the task and half elsewhere, on the evening ahead, on the letter you received yesterday from a cousin in Moscow, on the rumor that the factory might exceed its monthly quota, meaning bonus pay for everyone. Small hopes and concerns, the texture of ordinary life. Around you, the great industrial symphony plays on, the sounds of machinery, of human voices calling instructions or warnings, of metal and wood and the basic materials of production. This is the sound of socialism being built, or so the slogans say. The reality, as always, is more complicated. But for now, the work continues, carrying you through the morning toward whatever the rest of the day might bring. The factory horn blares, signaling the change of shift. It's now 1962, and the Soviet Union has evolved since Stalin's death. Khrushchev's thaw has brought subtle changes to everyday life. The fear that once permeated everything has lessened, though it hasn't disappeared entirely. People speak a little more freely, though they still watch what they say and where they say it. You've moved up in the world after years of faithful service at the Kirov Works. You've been promoted to a supervisory role. Your days are still long, but now they involve less physical labor and more administrative tasks. Managing production schedules, overseeing quality control, mediating disputes among workers. You even have a small, private office, a rare luxury, though it's still sparsely furnished, with a metal desk, a single chair, and a portrait of Lenin on the wall. The air in your office is still a stark contrast to the cacophony of the factory floor. Here, the sounds are muffled, distant, a constant hum that serves as a reminder of the industrial engine you helped to drive. The window, though grimy, offers a view of the factory yard, a vast expanse of concrete and rail tracks, crisscrossed by the movement of goods and people. You watch the new shift arrive, a fresh wave of faces, some young and eager, others older, their expressions etched with the familiar weariness of long years of labor. You recognize some of them, former colleagues now under your supervision. There's a sense of responsibility that comes with your new position, a weight that settles on your shoulders. You are no longer just a cog in the machine, you are now a part of its steering mechanism, however small. Life outside the factory has also seen changes. The communal apartment, while still a reality for many, is slowly giving way to individual apartments in new housing blocks, built with a speed that often sacrifices quality for quantity. You too are on the waiting list for one of these new apartments, a dream that feels closer now than ever before. The promise of a private bathroom, a private kitchen, a space truly your own is a powerful motivator. Food supplies, while still subject to periodic shortages, are generally more abundant and varied. The Gastronome, once a place of rare delights, now offers a slightly wider selection of goods, though queues remain a persistent feature of Soviet life. Consumer goods, once almost non-existent, are slowly trickling into the market. Radios, televisions, even refrigerators, though they remain expensive and difficult to acquire. The state, recognizing the growing aspirations of its citizens, is making efforts to improve living standards, to demonstrate the superiority of the socialist system. Yet, beneath the surface of these improvements, the old tensions remain. The gap between official propaganda and lived reality persists. The black market, though officially condemned, thrives, a testament to the enduring human desire for choice and convenience. People still whisper jokes, still find ways to circumvent the system, still rely on informal networks to get what they need. The thaw, while real, is a delicate balance, a cautious loosening of the reins, not a fundamental shift in ideology. The party still watches, still controls, still demands conformity. But the fear, that pervasive, chilling fear of the Stalinist era, has receded, replaced by a more subtle, more nuanced form of control. Evenings are still a time for family and quiet pursuits. The small radio in your room, a prized possession, brings news and entertainment from Moscow, carefully curated by the state. You listen to classical music, to official pronouncements, to the occasional cultural program. Books, though censored, are widely available and eagerly consumed. The works of Pushkin, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and other Russian classics are cherished, offering an escape into worlds of beauty and complexity. You might spend an evening reading aloud to your family, the words weaving a comforting spell in the quiet room. Neighbors still visit, sharing tea and conversation, discussing the day's events, exchanging rumors and gossip. These informal gatherings are a vital part of social life, a space where people can speak more freely, where the bonds of community are strengthened. The children, oblivious to the complexities of adult life, play in the communal courtyard, their laughter echoing through the evening air. Life, in its essence, continues, a blend of routine and unexpected moments, of hardship and small joys. The Soviet Union, in 1962, is a nation in motion, a society grappling with its past and cautiously embracing its future. The grand experiment continues its trajectory uncertain, its ultimate destination unknown. But for now, in the quiet rhythm of daily life, there is a sense of continuity, a quiet resilience that defines the Soviet experience. As the 1970s dawn, a new era begins in the Soviet Union, often referred to as the era of stagnation. Leonid Brezhnev is at the helm, and the initial optimism of the Khrushchev years has given way to a more cautious bureaucratic stability. You are now a seasoned veteran of the Kirov works, your supervisory role having evolved into a more senior management position. Your dream of a private apartment has come true. You now live in a modest but comfortable two-room apartment in one of the newer housing blocks on the outskirts of Leningrad. The building is functional, if not aesthetically pleasing, a testament to the mass production of housing. Your apartment, while small by Western standards, feels spacious and private after years in the communalka. You have your own kitchen, a compact space with a small gas stove and a tiny refrigerator, and your own bathroom, a luxury you still appreciate every morning. The walls are thin, and you can sometimes hear your neighbors, but the sense of personal space is profound. The furniture is still practical and sturdy, but you've managed to acquire a few decorative items: a small rug, a framed print, a ceramic vase, small touches that make the space feel more like a home. The television, once a rare luxury, is now a common fixture, broadcasting state-controlled news and entertainment. You watch the evening news, carefully edited to present a positive image of Soviet life, and popular films, often historical dramas or comedies that reinforce socialist values. The world outside your apartment, however, is becoming increasingly complex. The economy, once robust, is showing signs of strain. While heavy industry continues to churn out goods, consumer goods remain scarce and of poor quality. The queues at the gastronome are longer, and the selection is often disappointing. The black market, once a discreet whisper, is now a more open secret, a parallel economy that caters to the unmet desires of the population. People rely on connections, on blat and on sheer ingenuity to acquire everything from fashionable clothes to spare parts for their aging cars. The official narrative of socialist abundance clashes increasingly with the lived reality of shortages and compromises. Yet for many, life is still better than it was in the immediate post-war years. Basic necessities are provided: housing, employment, health care, education. There is a sense of stability, a predictable rhythm to life that for some is comforting. The fear of arbitrary arrest and repression has largely receded, replaced by a more subtle form of social control, a pervasive sense of being watched, of needing to conform. Dissidents exist, of course, but they are a small minority, often marginalized and suppressed. For the vast majority, life is a delicate balance between accepting the system and finding small ways to navigate its limitations. Your children are grown now, pursuing their own paths within the Soviet system. Your son, a promising engineer, works at a design bureau, contributing to the nation's space program. Your daughter, a dedicated teacher, shapes young minds in a local school. They represent the next generation. Raised entirely within the socialist experiment, their perspectives shaped by a different set of experiences than your own. They are more educated, more worldly, perhaps a little more cynical. They listen to Western radio stations, secretly exchanging forbidden records and books. They are aware of the world beyond the Iron Curtain, a world that, through official channels, is often portrayed as decadent and corrupt, but which, through whispers and illicit media, appears to offer a tantalizing glimpse of freedom and abundance. You worry about them, about their unspoken desires, about the subtle ways in which the system might constrain their ambitions, but you also take pride in their achievements, in their contributions to Soviet society. They are, after all, the future. Social life in the 1970s remained centered around family, friends, and the workplace. Weekends are often spent at the dacha, a small country house or plot of land where city dwellers cultivate gardens, relax, and escape the urban grind. The dacha is a sanctuary, a place where the rules of Soviet life seem to loosen, where people can speak more freely, where the simple pleasures of nature and camaraderie take precedence. You might spend hours tending your small vegetable patch, the rhythmic digging and planting a soothing balm for the soul. Evenings are filled with conversations around a crackling fire, with songs and stories, with the quiet joy of shared humanity. Holidays are celebrated with gusto, particularly New Year's Eve, which in the Soviet Union takes on a special significance, replacing the suppressed religious holidays. Grandfather Frost and his granddaughter Snegurochka bring gifts, and families gather for elaborate feasts, often featuring rare delicacies acquired through connections or the black market. These celebrations are a vital outlet, a collective moment of joy and release from the everyday pressures of Soviet life. Travel, while restricted, is still possible. You might take a vacation to a Black Sea resort, a popular destination for Soviet citizens, where you can enjoy the sun, sand, and sea, and perhaps even encounter foreign tourists, a rare glimpse of the outside world. Or you might visit other Soviet republics, experiencing the diverse cultures and landscapes of the vast empire. These trips, though carefully controlled, offer a sense of adventure and a broadening of horizons. They reinforce the idea of the Soviet Union as a multinational brotherhood, a mosaic of peoples united under a common ideology. Yet, even in these moments of leisure, the presence of the state is never far. Sanatoriums, state-run health resorts, are popular, offering rest and medical treatment, often provided as a perk of employment. These institutions, while beneficial, also serve as another mechanism of social control, ensuring the health and productivity of the workforce. The 1980s bring a new wave of change, a period of increasing uncertainty and growing discontent. Mikhail Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and perestroika begin to chip away at the foundations of the Soviet system. The official narrative starts to unravel as previously forbidden topics are openly discussed in the media. The truth about historical events, long suppressed, begins to emerge, shocking and disorienting many. The economy, despite perestroika, continues to falter. Shortages become more acute, queues longer, and the black market more pervasive. The gap between the official rhetoric and the lived reality widens into a chasm. You, now nearing retirement, observe these changes with a mixture of hope and apprehension. The newfound freedom of speech is exhilarating, but also unsettling. The old certainties are crumbling, and the future feels increasingly unpredictable. You participate in discussions at work, cautiously expressing your opinions, testing the boundaries of this new openness. The factory, once a symbol of Soviet strength, is struggling. Production targets are missed, equipment is outdated, and worker morale is low. The old rhythms of industrial life are disrupted, replaced by a sense of disarray. Your children, now middle-aged, are more vocal in their criticisms of the system. They participate in informal discussions, attend unofficial gatherings, and openly express their desire for greater freedom and prosperity. You listen to them, sometimes with a sense of pride, sometimes with a pang of fear. You remember the days when such talk could lead to severe consequences, and though the fear has lessened, it has not entirely disappeared. The younger generation, those who've grown up with glasnost, are even more impatient, more demanding. They see the West not as a distant, decadent enemy, but as a model for a better future. The cultural landscape is also transforming. Western music, films, and fashion, once underground phenomena, are now openly consumed, influencing tastes and challenging traditional Soviet values. The Iron Curtain, once impenetrable, is now riddled with holes, allowing a flood of new ideas and influences to seep in. The sense of isolation, a defining feature of Soviet life for decades, begins to dissipate, replaced by a growing awareness of the interconnectedness of the world. As the decade draws to a close, The pace of change accelerates. The satellite states of Eastern Europe, once firmly within the Soviet orbit, begin to assert their independence. The Berlin Wall, a potent symbol of the Cold War, falls, sending shock waves across the globe. Within the Soviet Union itself, ethnic tensions flare, and calls for greater autonomy grow louder. The Communist Party, once the undisputed authority, finds its power eroding. You watch these events unfold on your television, a sense of disbelief mingling with a strange sense of inevitability. The system you have known your entire life, the system that provided both security and constraint, is collapsing before your eyes. The future, once predictable, is now a blank canvas filled with both promise and peril. You retire from the Kirov works, a lifetime of labor behind you. The factory, once a vibrant hub of activity, is now a shadow of its former self, struggling to adapt to the new economic realities. Many of your former colleagues are laid off, their lives disrupted by the sudden shift from a planned economy to a market-driven one. You spend your days at home tending your small garden, reading books, and reflecting on the extraordinary changes you have witnessed. The communal apartment, a distant memory, now seems like a relic from another age. Your private apartment, once a symbol of progress, is now just a home, a quiet refuge in a world turned upside down. The final years of the Soviet Union are a whirlwind of political upheaval and economic chaos. The republics declare their independence one by one, and the central government struggles to maintain control. Food shortages become severe, and hyperinflation erodes savings. The sense of order, however fragile, that had characterized Soviet life for decades, dissolves into disarray. You, an elderly observer, watch these events with a mixture of sadness and resignation. The grand experiment, the dream of a socialist utopia, has failed. The sacrifices, the hardships, the quiet endurance of generations seem to have been in vain. Yet, even in this moment of collapse, there is a glimmer of hope. The freedom that was once unimaginable is now a reality. However chaotic, people can speak their minds, travel freely, pursue their own dreams. The future is uncertain, but it is also, for the first time in a long time, truly open. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union officially ceases to exist. The red flag with the hammer and sickle is lowered from the Kremlin, replaced by the tricolor of the Russian Federation. A new era begins, a new chapter in the long and complex history of this vast land. You sit in your apartment, perhaps sipping a cup of tea, listening to the sounds of the city outside. The world has changed profoundly and irrevocably, but life, in its quiet, persistent way, continues. The sun rises, the seasons turn, and the human spirit, resilient and adaptable, finds new ways to endure, to hope, to dream. And as you drift into sleep, perhaps you can feel the gentle rhythm of this continuity, the quiet assurance that even in the face of monumental change, the essence of life, in its simple, everyday moments, remains. This concludes our journey through the daily life of the Soviet Union. May the echoes of this past era guide you into a peaceful and restful sleep. Good night. Let us delve deeper into the fabric of daily life in the Soviet Union of the 1950s, a time when the nation was still rebuilding from the devastation of war, yet simultaneously embarking on ambitious plans for industrialization and social transformation. The communal apartment, our starting point, was more than just a living space. It was a microcosm of Soviet society, a forced experiment in collective living that shaped personal relationships and defined the boundaries of privacy. Imagine the constant negotiation over shared resources, the single gas burner in the kitchen, the limited space in the communal refrigerator, the ever-present challenge of scheduling bathroom time. These were not mere inconveniences, they were daily tests of patience, cooperation, and sometimes subtle defiance. The sounds of the communalka were a constant symphony. The clatter of pots, the murmur of conversations, the occasional argument, the distant cry of a baby. each sound a thread in the intricate tapestry of shared existence. Yet, within this enforced proximity, individuals found ways to carve out their own spaces to maintain a sense of self. A carefully arranged corner of a room, a treasured book, a quiet moment of reflection, these were the small acts of resistance against the overwhelming tide of collectivism. The concept of privacy, as understood in the West, was largely absent. Doors were thin, walls often permeable, and the constant presence of others meant that personal lives were, to a large extent, public. Children grew up understanding the nuances of shared space, learning early on the importance of quietness, of not disturbing others, of finding moments of solitude amidst the bustle. This constant interaction, however, also fostered a strong sense of community. Neighbors became extended family, sharing food, childcare, and emotional support. In a society where official channels were often inefficient or unreliable, these informal networks were crucial for survival. A neighbor might have access to a rare commodity, connection to a doctor, or simply a sympathetic ear. These were the bonds that held society together, the unwritten rules that governed daily interactions, often more powerful than any decree from Moscow. Food, a constant preoccupation in Soviet life, was a daily challenge and a source of both frustration and ingenuity. The state food shops, or gastronome, offered a limited and often unpredictable selection. Queues were a ubiquitous feature of the urban landscape, a testament to the scarcity of goods and the patience of the Soviet consumer. Imagine standing for hours in a line, not knowing what, if anything, would be available at the end of it. The arrival of a fresh shipment of oranges, or perhaps even a rare delicacy like chocolate, would spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, drawing crowds and creating a momentary frenzy. Yet, even in the face of shortages, Soviet citizens displayed remarkable resourcefulness. Gardens, both private and communal, provided fresh produce. Informal networks in the black market filled the gaps left by the state distribution system. Recipes were adapted, ingredients substituted, and meals stretched to feed families. The simple act of preparing and sharing a meal became a ritual, a moment of warmth and connection in an often cold world. Work for most Soviet citizens was not just a means of livelihood, but a fundamental aspect of identity and social obligation. The factory, the office, the collective farm, these were the arenas where the socialist future was being built. The emphasis was on collective effort, on meeting quotas, on contributing to the grand plan. Individual initiative, while theoretically encouraged, was often stifled by bureaucracy and a pervasive fear of standing out. Yet, within this rigid system, individuals found ways to derive meaning from their labor. The pride in producing a useful component, the camaraderie with fellow workers, the sense of contributing to something larger than oneself, these were the intangible rewards of Soviet labor. The factory floor, a symphony of noise and motion, was a place of both toil and human connection. Jokes were whispered, grievances aired, and small acts of solidarity performed. The rhythm of the machines, the smell of oil and metal, the shared sweat and effort, these forged a unique bond among workers, a sense of shared destiny. Beyond the immediate confines of the factory, the city of Leningrad itself was a character in the daily drama of Soviet life. Its grand imperial architecture, a legacy of a different era, stood in stark contrast to the utilitarian new housing blocks and the bustling industrial zones. The city was a palimpsest, layers of history superimposed upon each other, each era leaving its indelible mark. The trams, rattling through the streets, were arteries of urban life, carrying workers to their jobs, families to markets, and individuals to their daily routines. The posters proclaiming the successes of the 5-year plans, with their images of smiling, heroic workers, were a constant visual reminder of the official narrative, a stark contrast to the tired faces and resigned expressions of the commuter. Yet, even amidst the propaganda and the hardships, there was a deep sense of pride in the city. in its history, in its resilience. Leningrad, the city that had endured the brutal siege, was a symbol of Soviet strength and endurance. The cultural landscape of the 1950s was tightly controlled, yet vibrant in its own way. Art, literature, music, all were expected to serve the purposes of the state, to promote socialist realism and celebrate the achievements of the Soviet system. Yet, within these constraints, artists and intellectuals found ways to express themselves, to create works of beauty and meaning. The theater, the cinema, the opera, these were popular forms of entertainment, offering an escape from the mundane realities of daily life. Books were cherished, and libraries were well patronized. Despite censorship, the classics of Russian literature, as well as approved foreign works, were widely read, education was highly valued, and literacy rates were high. Children were taught to be good Soviet citizens, to embrace collectivism and patriotism. The pioneer and Komsomol organizations provided a structured framework for youth activities, instilling socialist values and fostering a sense of belonging. Family life remained the cornerstone of Soviet society. Despite the challenges of communal living and economic hardship, families provided a vital source of emotional support and stability. Grandparents often played a significant role in raising children, passing on traditions and values. The concept of the extended family was strong, with relatives often living in close proximity or maintaining strong ties despite geographical distance. Celebrations, particularly New Year's, were elaborate affairs, bringing families together for feasts and festivities. These moments of shared joy were essential for reinforcing family bonds and providing a sense of normalcy amidst the often challenging realities of Soviet life. The role of women in Soviet society was complex. Officially, women were equal to men, participating fully in the workforce and holding positions of responsibility. However, they also bore the primary responsibility for household chores and childcare, often juggling demanding jobs with the burdens of domestic life. The state provided child care facilities, but these were often insufficient, placing additional strain on families. Despite these challenges, Soviet women displayed remarkable resilience and strength, contributing significantly to the nation's economic and social development. The political climate, though less overtly repressive after Stalin's death, still cast a long shadow. The omnipresent eye of the state, though less visible, was still felt. People learned to self-censor, to speak in veiled terms, to avoid sensitive topics in public. The fear of denunciation, though diminished, had not entirely disappeared. Yet, within these constraints, there was a surprising degree of resilience and even humor. Jokes about the system, often shared in hushed tones, provided a vital outlet for frustration and a subtle form of resistance. The official ideology, while pervasive, was often met with a degree of cynicism and detachment. People went through the motions, participated in official rituals, but their true beliefs and aspirations often lay elsewhere. This doublethink, this ability to navigate both the official and unofficial realities, was a defining characteristic of Soviet life. As we move into the 1960s, the Soviet Union experiences a period of relative liberalization known as the Khrushchev thaw. The rigid controls of the Stalin era begin to loosen, and a new sense of optimism, however cautious, emerges. The space race, the symbol of Soviet technological prowess, captures the imagination of the nation. Yuri Gagarin's flight into space is a moment of immense national pride, a testament to the power of the socialist system. You, now in a supervisory role at the Kirov Works, witnessed these changes firsthand. The factory, while still operating under the strictures of the planned economy, feels a little less oppressive. Workers are encouraged to offer suggestions for improving efficiency, and there's a greater emphasis on worker welfare. The dream of a private apartment, once a distant fantasy, now seems within reach. New housing blocks, known as Khrushchevkas, are being constructed at a rapid pace, providing millions of Soviet citizens with their own private living spaces. These apartments, though small and often poorly constructed, represent a significant improvement in living standards, a tangible sign of progress. Consumer goods, while still not abundant, become slightly more available. Radios, televisions, and even refrigerators become more common, transforming daily life. The gastronome offers a wider variety of products, and while queues still exist, they are often shorter and less unpredictable. The black market, though still present, becomes less essential for acquiring basic necessities. Cultural life also experiences a thaw. Previously banned authors are published, and foreign films and music gain a wider audience. The arts, while still subject to ideological control, enjoy a greater degree of freedom. Youth culture begins to emerge, influenced by Western trends, though often adapted to Soviet realities. The bards, singer-songwriters who perform their own songs, often with subtle social commentary, gain a loyal following. These cultural phenomena, though seemingly small, represent a significant shift in the social landscape, a growing desire for individual expression, and a questioning of official narratives. However, the thaw is not without its limitations. The state still maintains ultimate control, and any challenge to the fundamental principles of socialism is met with swift repression. The Hungarian uprising of 1956 and the suppression of the Prague Spring in 1968 serve as stark reminders of the limits of liberalization. The fear, though less pervasive, still lingers beneath the surface. People learn to navigate the new freedoms cautiously, to test the boundaries without overstepping them. The doublethink, the ability to maintain both an official and an unofficial reality, continues to be a vital survival mechanism. Yet, despite these limitations, the 1960s represent a period of genuine hope and progress for many Soviet citizens. The worst excesses of the Stalin era are behind them, and the future, though uncertain, seems to hold the promise of a better life. As we transition into the 1970s, the Soviet Union enters a period often characterized as the era of stagnation. The initial dynamism of the Khrushchev years gives way to a more bureaucratic and conservative stability under Leonid Brezhnev. The economy, burdened by military spending and a lack of innovation, begins to falter. While heavy industry continues to churn out impressive production figures, the consumer sector lags behind. Shortages of basic goods become more common, and the quality of available products often leaves much to be desired. The queues at the gastronome, a familiar feature of Soviet life, grow longer and more frustrating. The black market, once a marginal phenomenon, becomes an integral part of the economy, a parallel system that provides access to everything from fashionable clothing to imported electronics. BLAT, the system of informal connections and favors, becomes essential for navigating the complexities of daily life. Knowing the right people, having the right connections, is often more important than having money. Despite these economic challenges, the 1970s also represent a period of relative stability and predictability for many Soviet citizens. The state continues to provide a comprehensive social safety net, guaranteed employment, free health care, and subsidized housing. The fear of political repression, while not entirely absent, is significantly reduced. People are generally left alone, as long as they do not openly challenge the system. This sense of security, this predictable rhythm of life, is valued by many, particularly those who remember the turmoil of earlier decades. The dacha, the small country house or plot of land, becomes an increasingly important part of Soviet life. It is a place of escape, a sanctuary from the pressures of urban life, a space where people can connect with nature and with each other. The cultivation of gardens, the sharing of meals, the long conversations around a crackling fire. These are the simple pleasures that sustain the human spirit. Cultural life in the 1970s is a complex mix of official and unofficial activities. The state continues to promote socialist realism, but a vibrant underground culture also flourishes. Samizdat, The clandestine circulation of forbidden literature provides access to a wide range of alternative voices, from dissident writers to Western philosophers. Magnetized at the circulation of bootleg recordings of bards and Western rock music introduces new sounds and ideas to a generation hungry for change. These unofficial cultural networks, though risky, are a vital source of intellectual and artistic stimulation, a testament to the enduring human desire for freedom of expression. The official media, meanwhile, presents a sanitized and often distorted picture of Soviet reality. The evening news, with its endless reports of production successes and diplomatic triumphs, bears little resemblance to the lived experience of most citizens. This disconnect between the official narrative and the everyday reality fosters a deep sense of cynicism and disillusionment. As we enter the 1980s, the Soviet Union is a society on the brink of profound change. The death of Brezhnev in 1982 is followed by a rapid succession of aging leaders, further highlighting the stagnation at the heart of the system. The war in Afghanistan, a costly and unpopular conflict, drains the nation's resources and morale. The Chernobyl disaster in 1986 exposes the deep flaws in the Soviet system, its secrecy, its incompetence, its disregard for human life. The accession of Mikhail Gorbachev in 1985 marks a turning point. His policies of glasnost and perestroika are designed to revitalize the Soviet system, to make it more efficient, more democratic, more humane. However, these reforms, once unleashed, take on a life of their own, setting in motion a chain of events that will ultimately lead to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Glasnost, the policy of openness, has a particularly profound impact. Previously taboo subjects are now openly discussed in the media. The crimes of the Stalin era, the corruption of the Brezhnev years, the failures of the planned economy, all are exposed to public scrutiny. This newfound freedom of speech is both exhilarating and disorienting. The old certainties are shattered, and a new, more complex understanding of Soviet history begins to emerge. Perestroika, the policy of economic restructuring, is less successful. The attempt to introduce market mechanisms into the planned economy creates chaos and confusion. Shortages worsen, inflation spirals out of control, and the standard of living for many plummets. The gap between the promise of reform and the reality of economic hardship fuels popular discontent. The late 1980s are a period of unprecedented political ferment. The satellite states of Eastern Europe, inspired by Gorbachev's reforms, begin to break away from Soviet control. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 is a symbolic moment, a powerful testament to the changing geopolitical landscape. Within the Soviet Union itself, nationalist movements gain momentum and the republics begin to demand greater autonomy.
The Communist Party, once the unshakable foundation of the Soviet system, finds its authority crumbling. The final years of the Soviet Union are a period of rapid and often chaotic change.
The failed coup of August 1991, an attempt by hardliners to reverse Gorbachev's reforms, only accelerates the process of disintegration. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union is formally dissolved, bringing an end to the 74-year experiment in building a socialist society. The legacy of the Soviet Union is complex and contested. It was a system that, at its best, provided a degree of social security and a sense of collective purpose. At its worst, it was a brutal and repressive regime that inflicted immense suffering on its own people. The daily life of ordinary Soviet citizens was a constant negotiation between these two extremes, a delicate balance between conformity and resistance, between hope and despair. As we reflect on this bygone era, let us remember not just the grand historical narratives, but also the quiet, everyday stories of the millions of individuals who lived, loved, and dreamed within the shadow of the Kremlin. For it is in these stories that we find the true measure of the human spirit, its resilience, its creativity, its enduring capacity for hope. And now, as the echoes of this past fade into the quiet of the night, may you find a deep and restful peace. Good night. Let us now immerse ourselves more deeply into the Brezhnev era, the so-called era of stagnation, which spanned from the mid-1960s to the early 1980s. This was a period of contradictions, a time of both apparent stability and underlying decay. For many Soviet citizens, it was a time of relative prosperity, a welcome respite from the hardships of the past. The state, flush with oil revenues, was able to provide a level of social welfare that was unprecedented in Soviet history. Housing, though often of poor quality, was widely available. Healthcare and education were free and accessible to all. Employment was guaranteed, and the fear of unemployment was virtually unknown. This sense of security, this predictable rhythm of life, was a powerful source of social cohesion. People knew what to expect from life, and for many, this was a comforting thought. However, beneath this veneer of stability, the Soviet system was slowly beginning to unravel. The economy, burdened by a bloated bureaucracy and a lack of innovation, was becoming increasingly inefficient. The focus on heavy industry and military production meant that the consumer sector was chronically neglected. Shortages of basic goods were a constant feature of daily life. The queues, a symbol of Soviet life, were a daily reminder of the system's failings. The black market, or second economy, flourished, providing a parallel system for acquiring everything from fashionable clothes to imported electronics. Blatt, the system of informal connections and favors, became an essential survival skill. Knowing the right people was often more important than having money. This created a society of insiders and outsiders, of those who had access to the system of favors and those who did not. Cultural life in the Brezhnev era was also a study in contradictions. The state continued to promote a sanitized and idealized version of Soviet reality, but a vibrant underground culture also thrived. Samizdat, the clandestine circulation of forbidden literature, provided an alternative source of information and ideas. Magnetizdat, the bootleg recording and circulation of unofficial music, introduced new sounds and sensibilities. The bards with their acoustic guitars and poetic lyrics became the voice of a generation expressing the hopes, fears, and frustrations of a society that was officially supposed to be happy and content. These unofficial cultural networks, though risky, were a vital source of intellectual and artistic ferment, a testament to the enduring human desire for freedom of expression. For our narrator, now a senior manager at the Kirov Works, the Brezhnev era is a time of both personal success and growing disillusionment. He has achieved the dream of a private apartment, a symbol of his upward mobility. He has a stable job, a comfortable income, and a respected position in society. Yet, he is also increasingly aware of the system's flaws. He sees the inefficiency and waste in the factory, the corruption and cynicism of the party officials, the growing gap between the official rhetoric and the lived reality. He worries about his children, who are growing up in a world that is both more comfortable and more cynical than the one he knew. They are more educated, more worldly, and more critical of the system. They listen to Western rock music, read forbidden books, and dream of a life of greater freedom and opportunity. The dacha, the small country house or plot of land, becomes an increasingly important refuge for our narrator and his family. It is a place where they can escape the pressures of city life, where they can connect with nature, and where they can speak more freely. The cultivation of a small garden, the sharing of meals with friends and family, the long conversations around a crackling fire, these are the simple pleasures that sustain them. The dacha represents a small island of autonomy in a sea of state control, a place where they can create their own world, however small. As the Brezhnev era draws to a close, The Soviet Union is a society that is outwardly stable but inwardly decaying. The system which had once inspired such revolutionary fervor has become a rigid and sclerotic bureaucracy. The economy is stagnant, the culture is stifled, and the people are increasingly apathetic. The stage is set for the dramatic changes that will unfold in the 1980s, a decade that will witness the final tumultuous chapter in the history of the Soviet Union. The arrival of Mikhail Gorbachev in 1985 marks the beginning of the end. His policies of glasnost and perestroika, intended to reform and revitalize the Soviet system, instead unleash a torrent of change that will ultimately sweep it away. Glasnost, the policy of openness, allows for an unprecedented level of public debate and criticism. The crimes of the past, the failures of the present, the hopes for the future, all are now openly discussed. For our narrator, now retired, this is a time of both excitement and anxiety. He is thrilled by the new freedom of speech, but also unsettled by the unraveling of the old Ussr. He watches the television with a mixture of fascination and disbelief as the once monolithic Soviet empire begins to crumble. Perestroika, the policy of economic restructuring, proves to be a dismal failure. The attempt to introduce market mechanisms into a command economy creates chaos and confusion. Shortages worsen, inflation soars, and the standard of living for many plummets. The factory where our narrator spent his entire working life is now a shadow of its former self, struggling to survive in the new economic environment. Many of his former colleagues are now unemployed, their lives thrown into turmoil. The social safety net that had once been the pride of the Soviet system is now in tatters. The late 1980s and early 1990s are a time of dizzying change. The satellite states of Eastern Europe break free from Soviet control. The Berlin Wall falls. The republics of the Soviet Union declare their independence. The Communist Party, which had ruled for over 70 years, is swept from power. On Christmas Day, 1991, the red flag is lowered from the Kremlin for the last time. The Soviet Union, the grand and tragic experiment in building a socialist utopia, is no more. For our narrator, an old man now, these events are a source of both sadness and hope. He mourns the passing of the world he knew, the world that, for all its flaws, had provided him with a sense of purpose and belonging. But he also recognizes that the old system was unsustainable, that it had to change. He looks at his grandchildren, who are growing up in a new Russia, a Russia that is both chaotic and full of promise. He hopes that they will be able to build a better future, a future that is free from the mistakes of the past. As he sits in his apartment, sipping his tea and listening to the sounds of the city, he reflects on the long and strange journey of his life. He has witnessed the rise and fall of an empire, the triumph and tragedy of a revolution. He has lived through war and peace, through hope and despair, and through it all, he has endured. His story, like the stories of millions of other ordinary Soviet citizens, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, its ability to find meaning and dignity in even the most challenging of circumstances. And now, as the night deepens and the city quiets down, let us leave him to his memories, to his dreams, to his peaceful slumber. Good night. Let us continue our gentle exploration of daily life in the Soviet Union, moving beyond the initial impressions of the kommunalka and the factory floor to delve into the broader social fabric and the subtle nuances that shaped individual experiences. The Soviet system, in its grand ambition, sought to create a new kind of society, a collective where individual desires were subsumed by the greater good. Yet, human nature, with its inherent complexities and contradictions, often found ways to assert itself, creating a rich tapestry of unofficial practices and informal networks that ran parallel to the official structure. Consider, for instance, the role of education. In the Soviet Union, education was not merely a means to acquire knowledge, it was a powerful tool for ideological indoctrination and social mobility. From a young age, children were immersed in the principles of Marxism-Leninism, taught to revere Lenin and the Communist Party, and encouraged to embrace collectivism and patriotism. Schools were more than just places of learning. They were centers of social engineering, shaping the minds and values of the next generation. Yet, even within this rigid framework, individual talents and aspirations found expression. Bright students were encouraged to pursue higher education, and a strong emphasis was placed on scientific and technical fields, reflecting the nation's drive for industrial and technological advancement. The pursuit of knowledge, even within the confines of ideological control, offered a path to personal growth and professional achievement. Beyond formal education, cultural life played a significant role in shaping Soviet identity. The state, through its vast network of cultural institutions, sought to provide accessible and ideologically sound entertainment. The theater, the cinema, the opera, and the ballet were highly subsidized and widely attended, offering a form of escapism and a connection to the rich traditions of Russian and Soviet art. Museums showcased the achievements of the socialist system, while libraries, well stocked with approved literature, served as centers of intellectual life. Yet, alongside this official culture, a vibrant unofficial culture often thrived. Poets and writers, unable to publish their works through official channels, circulated them through samizdat, handwritten or typed copies passed from hand to hand. Musicians, inspired by Western rock and jazz, created their own unique sounds, often performing in clandestine concerts. These underground cultural movements, though operating at great risk, provided a vital outlet for creative expression and a subtle form of dissent, a testament to the enduring power of art to transcend political boundaries. Sport, too, was a central pillar of Soviet life, serving both as a means of promoting physical fitness and as a powerful tool for national prestige. Soviet athletes, meticulously trained and supported by the state, dominated international competitions, particularly in disciplines like gymnastics, ice hockey, and track and field. Their victories were celebrated as triumphs of the socialist system, demonstrations of the superiority of the Soviet way of life. Mass participation in sports was encouraged, with numerous sports clubs and facilities available to the general population. The physical prowess of Soviet citizens was seen as a reflection of the nation's strength and vitality, a symbol of its progress towards a healthier and more robust society. Leisure time, though often limited by long working hours and the demands of daily life, was cherished. Weekends were often spent with family and friends, engaging in simple pleasures, trips to the park, visits to the dacha, or gatherings at home for tea and conversation were common. The collective garden plots, often located on the outskirts of cities, provided an opportunity for urban dwellers to connect with nature, to grow their own food, and to escape the confines of apartment living. These small plots of land, often passed down through generations, were more than just gardens. They were places of refuge where people could relax, socialize, and enjoy a degree of autonomy that was often absent in other aspects of their lives. Travel, while restricted, was still a part of Soviet life. Internal tourism was encouraged, with citizens often traveling to different parts of the vast Soviet Union to experience its diverse cultures and landscapes. Trips to the Black Sea coast, the Caucasus Mountains, or the Baltic states were popular, offering a chance to relax and explore. Foreign travel, however, was a rare privilege reserved for a select few who were deemed politically reliable. Even then, such trips were carefully monitored, and contact with foreigners was discouraged. This limited exposure to the outside world contributed to a sense of isolation, reinforcing the official narrative of a superior Soviet system and a decadent, hostile West. The role of the Communist Party permeated every aspect of Soviet life. From the factory floor to the school classroom, party organizations exercised control and influence. Membership in the party was a prerequisite for career advancement and social prestige, and party meetings were a regular feature of professional life. Yet, for many ordinary citizens, the party was a distant and abstract entity, its pronouncements often met with a mixture of deference and cynicism. People learned to navigate the complexities of party ideology, to pay lip service to its slogans while pursuing their own interests and adapting to the realities of daily life. The party, for all its power, often struggled to connect with the lived experiences of the population, creating a growing disconnect between the official rhetoric and the everyday reality. Religious belief, though officially discouraged and often suppressed, persisted throughout the Soviet era. Churches and religious institutions were often closed or repurposed, and religious practices were viewed with suspicion. Yet, for many, faith remained a deeply personal and enduring aspect of their lives. Religious holidays were often celebrated in secret, and traditions were passed down through generations, often in defiance of official prohibitions. The resilience of religious belief in the face of state atheism is a testament to the enduring human need for spiritual meaning and connection, a quiet act of defiance against the all-encompassing power of the state. The legal system, in theory, was designed to uphold socialist legality and protect the rights of citizens. In practice, however, it was often a tool of political control, used to suppress dissent and enforce conformity. Trials were often predetermined, and due process was frequently disregarded. Yet, even within this system, there were instances of ordinary citizens seeking justice, appealing to the authorities, and attempting to navigate the complexities of Soviet law. The legal system, like other aspects of Soviet life, was a reflection of the inherent contradictions of a society that sought to combine revolutionary ideals with authoritarian control. As the decades progressed, the Soviet Union faced new challenges and underwent further transformations. The 1970s, as we discussed, brought a period of stagnation characterized by economic slowdown and a growing sense of disillusionment. The official ideology, once a source of inspiration, became increasingly hollow, its slogans repeated by rote but lacking genuine conviction. The gap between the official narrative and the lived reality widened, leading to a pervasive sense of cynicism and apathy among the population. The black market, once a discrete phenomenon, became an open secret, a parallel economy that provided access to goods and services unavailable through official channels. The system of informal connections and favors, became an essential survival skill, a testament to the ingenuity of ordinary citizens in navigating a system that often failed to meet their basic needs. The 1980s, however, brought a new wave of change, initiated by Mikhail Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and perestroika. These reforms, intended to revitalize the Soviet system, instead unleashed forces that would ultimately lead to its collapse. Glasnost, or openness, allowed for an unprecedented level of public debate and criticism. The media, once a mouthpiece for state propaganda, began to publish investigative reports exposing corruption, inefficiency, and historical injustices. This newfound freedom of speech was both exhilarating and disorienting. The old certainties were shattered, and a new, more complex understanding of Soviet history began to emerge. People, long accustomed to self-censorship, began to speak their minds, to question authority, and to demand greater accountability from their leaders. Perestroika, or restructuring, aimed to reform the Soviet economy by introducing elements of market mechanisms and decentralization. However, these reforms were often implemented haphazardly, leading to chaos and confusion. The planned economy, accustomed to central control, struggled to adapt to the new realities. Shortages worsened, inflation soared, and the standard of living for many plummeted. The factory, once a symbol of Soviet strength, struggled to compete in a globalized economy. Many enterprises were forced to close, leading to widespread unemployment and social unrest. The social safety net, once a source of security, began to fray, leaving millions vulnerable to the harsh realities of a market economy. The political landscape also underwent dramatic changes. The Communist Party, once the undisputed authority, found its power eroding. Nationalist movements gained momentum in the republics. leading to demands for greater autonomy and eventually independence. The satellite states of Eastern Europe, inspired by Gorbachev's reforms, began to break away from Soviet control, culminating in the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. These events sent shockwaves across the globe, signaling the end of the Cold War and the beginning of a new geopolitical order. Within the Soviet Union itself, ethnic tensions flared and conflicts erupted in various regions, further destabilizing the already fragile system. The failed coup of August 1991, an attempt by hardliners to reverse Gorbachev's reforms, only accelerated the process of disintegration. The coup, though ultimately unsuccessful, exposed the deep divisions within the Soviet leadership and demonstrated the fragility of central authority. In the aftermath of the coup, the republics declared their independence one by one, and the Soviet Union, once a vast and seemingly unshakable empire, began to unravel. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union officially ceased to exist, bringing an end to a 74-year experiment in building a socialist society. The red flag with a hammer and sickle was lowered from the Kremlin, replaced by the tricolor of the Russian Federation, a symbolic moment marking the end of an era. For those who lived through these tumultuous times, the collapse of the Soviet Union was a profoundly transformative experience. For some, it was a moment of liberation, a release from the constraints of an authoritarian system and the promise of a brighter future. For others, it was a source of profound loss, the end of a familiar world and the beginning of an uncertain and often difficult transition. The economic shock therapy that followed led to widespread poverty, inequality, and social dislocation. The dream of a socialist utopia, once a powerful motivating force, was replaced by the harsh realities of a market economy. Yet, even amidst the chaos and uncertainty, the human spirit, resilient and adaptable, found ways to endure, to rebuild, and to hope for a better tomorrow. The legacy of the Soviet Union continues to be debated and reinterpreted. For some, it represents a failed experiment in totalitarianism, a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked state power. For others, it was a noble attempt to create a more just and equitable society, a system that, despite its flaws, provided a degree of social security and a sense of collective purpose. The daily lives of ordinary Soviet citizens, with their struggles and triumphs, their hopes and fears, offer a nuanced perspective on this complex history. Their stories remind us that even within the most rigid of systems, human beings find ways to assert their individuality, to create meaning, and to forge connection. The echoes of their lives, their quiet resilience, continue to resonate, offering valuable lessons for understanding the complexities of human experience and the enduring quest for freedom and dignity. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night. Let us now turn our attention to the subtle yet profound ways in which the Soviet system permeated the individual psyche, shaping not just actions but also thoughts and emotions. The constant presence of the state, through its propaganda, its surveillance, and its pervasive ideology, created a unique psychological landscape. From a young age, citizens were taught to internalize the values of collectivism, self-sacrifice, and loyalty to the party. The concept of the new Soviet man or new Soviet woman was not merely a political slogan, but a blueprint for personal conduct, an ideal to strive for. This constant pressure to conform, to embody the virtues of the socialist ideal, created a complex inner world, a space where official narratives often clashed with personal experiences and private thoughts. Consider the phenomenon of doublethink, a term popularized by George Orwell in his novel 1984, which, while a work of fiction, resonated deeply with many who lived under totalitarian regimes. In the Soviet context, doublethink was not necessarily a conscious act of deception, but a psychological adaptation, a way of navigating a reality where official pronouncements often contradicted observable fact. People learned to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, to outwardly affirm the party line while privately harboring doubts or dissenting opinions. This internal division, this constant negotiation between the public and private self, was a defining feature of Soviet life, a testament to the human capacity for psychological resilience in the face of ideological pressure. The role of humor, too, offers a fascinating glimpse into the Soviet psyche. Anecdotes and jokes, often shared in hushed tones among trusted friends, served as a vital outlet for frustration, a subtle form of resistance against the absurdities and hardships of the system. These jokes, often biting and satirical, allowed people to articulate their grievances, to mock the powerful, and to maintain a sense of intellectual autonomy. They were a form of collective therapy, a way of coping with the daily indignities and contradictions of Soviet life. The ability to laugh, even in the face of adversity, was a powerful act of defiance, a testament to the enduring human spirit. Family and friendship networks were crucial for psychological well-being. In a society where official institutions often failed to meet individual needs, these informal networks provided a vital source of support, trust, and emotional connection. Friends and relatives shared resources, exchanged favors, and offered a safe space for open conversation, a rare commodity in a society where surveillance was a constant threat. These intimate relationships were a refuge from the pressures of the outside world, a place where individuals could be themselves, where they could express their true feelings without fear of reprisal. The bonds of kinship and camaraderie were a powerful antidote to the isolation and alienation that could sometimes accompany life in a totalitarian state. The concept of byte, or everyday life, was a central theme in Soviet culture and discourse. Byte encompassed the mundane, the routine, the practical aspects of daily existence: cooking, cleaning, shopping, commuting. While officially dismissed as trivial in comparison to the grand historical project of building communism, Byte was in reality the arena where most Soviet citizens lived their lives. The struggles and triumphs of Byte, the endless queues, the search for scarce goods, the ingenuity required to make ends meet, shaped individual experiences more profoundly than any political decree. The ability to navigate the complexities of Byte, to find small victories and moments of joy amidst the daily grind, was a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of the Soviet people. Even in the most mundane aspects of life, the ideological struggle was present. The design of consumer goods, the architecture of public buildings, the content of children's books, all were imbued with socialist meaning, designed to reinforce the values of the system. Yet, people often found ways to subvert these intentions, to imbue objects with their own personal meanings, to create spaces of individuality within the collective. A carefully chosen piece of furniture, a treasured family photograph, a small decorative item, these were the subtle ways in which individuals asserted their personal identity, creating a sense of home and belonging in a world that often sought to homogenize and control. The natural world, too, offered a respite from the pressures of urban and ideological life. The vastness of the Russian landscape, its forests, rivers, and mountains, provided a sense of freedom and escape. Many Soviet citizens sought solace in nature, spending weekends at their dachas, hiking in the countryside, or fishing in remote lakes. These encounters with the natural world offered a sense of perspective, a reminder of something larger and more enduring than the fleeting concerns of political systems. The quiet beauty of a snowy forest, the gentle murmur of a river, the vast expanse of the sky, these were moments of profound peace, a connection to something timeless and universal. As the Soviet Union moved through its various phases, from the revolutionary fervor of the early years, through the brutal purges of the Stalin era, the cautious thaw of Khrushchev, the stagnation of Brezhnev, and finally the tumultuous reforms of Gorbachev, the human experience remained at its core. The grand narratives of history, with their focus on political leaders and economic policies, often obscure the quiet everyday lives of the millions of individuals who lived through these transformations. It is in these personal stories, in the small acts of resilience, the subtle forms of resistance, the enduring bonds of family and friendship, that we find the true essence of what life was like in the Soviet Union. It was a life of contradictions, of hardship and hope, of conformity and quiet defiance. And as you reflect on these intricate layers of human experience, may your mind find a gentle path towards a deep and restorative sleep. Good night. Let us now consider the role of propaganda and censorship in shaping the Soviet experience. From the earliest days of the Soviet state, the Communist Party understood the power of information and the importance of controlling the narrative. Propaganda was not merely a tool for political persuasion, it was an omnipresent force woven into the very fabric of daily life. Posters adorned public spaces extolling the virtues of socialism and the achievements of the Soviet Union. Newspapers and radio broadcasts delivered carefully curated news, emphasizing successes and downplaying failures. Films and plays depicted heroic workers and loyal party members, reinforcing the official ideology. This constant barrage of official information created a closed informational environment where alternative perspectives were suppressed and critical thinking was discouraged. Censorship was an integral part of this system. Every form of artistic expression, every piece of written material, every public utterance was subject to scrutiny. Books were banned, films were cut, and artists were persecuted if their work deviated from the party line. This created a climate of fear and self-censorship, where individuals learned to internalize the rules of acceptable discourse. Yet, even in this tightly controlled environment, cracks appeared. Rumors spread through informal networks, whispered conversations in kitchens and courtyards. Foreign radio broadcasts, though jammed, were sometimes heard, offering tantalizing glimpses of an alternative reality. The human desire for truth and authentic expression, though suppressed, could never be entirely extinguished. The healthcare system in the Soviet Union was a source of both pride and frustration. Officially, healthcare was free and universally accessible, a testament to the socialist commitment to social welfare. Polyclinics, hospitals, and sanatoriums provided a wide range of medical services, from routine checkups to specialized treatments. Doctors and nurses were highly trained, and medical research was actively pursued. For many, the availability of free health care was a significant improvement over the pre-revolutionary era, where medical care was a luxury reserved for the wealthy. However, the reality of Soviet healthcare often fell short of the official ideal. Facilities were often overcrowded and underfunded, equipment was outdated, and waiting lists for specialized treatments could be long. The quality of care varied widely, with urban centers generally offering better services than rural areas. The system was also plagued by bureaucracy and inefficiency, with patients often having to navigate a complex web of referrals and appointments. Despite these challenges, Soviet citizens generally valued the principle of universal health care, and for many, it provided a crucial safety net in times of illness. Social welfare programs were another cornerstone of the Soviet system. The state provided a wide range of benefits, including pensions for the elderly, disability payments, and maternity leave. Child care facilities, though often insufficient, were available to working mothers, allowing them to participate in the workforce. Housing, though often cramped and of poor quality, was heavily subsidized, ensuring that everyone had a roof over their head. These programs, while not always meeting the needs of the population, provided a basic level of security and stability, a stark contrast to the uncertainties of capitalist societies. The legal system, as we touched upon earlier, was a complex and often contradictory institution. While theoretically based on principles of socialist legality, it was often used as a tool of political repression. Show trials, arbitrary arrests, and forced confessions were a grim reality, particularly during the Stalin era. Yet, even within this system, there were instances of ordinary citizens seeking justice, appealing to the authorities, and attempting to navigate the complexities of Soviet law. The legal system, like other aspects of Soviet life, was a reflection of the inherent contradictions of a society that sought to combine revolutionary ideals with authoritarian control. The concept of socialist legality was often invoked, but its application was frequently inconsistent and politically motivated. Transportation in the Soviet Union was a mix of modern and outdated infrastructure. The railway system was extensive, connecting vast distances and serving as the backbone of the national economy. Trains were a common mode of long-distance travel, offering a glimpse into the diverse landscapes and cultures of the Soviet Union. Urban transportation relied heavily on trams, trolleybuses, and the metro, particularly in major cities like Moscow and Leningrad. The Moscow Metro, with its opulent stations and intricate mosaics, was a symbol of Soviet grandeur and technological achievement, a subterranean palace for the working class. Private car ownership was rare, particularly in the early decades of the Soviet Union. Cars were expensive and difficult to acquire, and the infrastructure for private motoring was underdeveloped. Most citizens relied on public transportation or bicycles for their daily commute. This emphasis on public transportation reflected the socialist ideal of collective ownership and the prioritization of public good over individual luxury. However, as the decades progressed and living standards slowly improved, the desire for private cars grew, leading to increased demand and persistent shortages. The natural environment, vast and diverse, played a significant role in the Soviet imagination. From the frozen tundras of Siberia to the sunny beaches of the Black Sea, the Soviet Union encompassed a wide range of climates and ecosystems. The state launched ambitious projects to transform nature, such as the diversion of rivers and the creation of vast agricultural schemes. These projects, often driven by ideological fervor, sometimes had devastating environmental consequences. Yet, for many ordinary citizens, nature remained a source of beauty, inspiration, and respite. The dacha, as we discussed, provided a vital connection to the land, a place where people could cultivate gardens, enjoy the outdoors, and escape the pressures of urban life. The relationship between the individual and the collective was a central tension in Soviet society. The official ideology emphasized the primacy of the collective, the idea that individual interests should be subordinated to the needs of society as a whole. This was reflected in everything from communal living arrangements to the emphasis on collective labor in factories and farms. Yet human beings, by their very nature, are individuals with their own unique desires, aspirations, and dreams. The Soviet experience was a constant negotiation between these two poles, a delicate balance between conformity and individuality. People found ways to assert their personal identities, to carve out spaces of autonomy, and to maintain a sense of self within the collective. The concept of time itself took on a unique dimension in the Soviet Union. The 5-year plans, with their ambitious targets and deadlines, created a sense of urgency and a focus on the future. The past, particularly the pre-revolutionary past, was often reinterpreted or suppressed to fit the official narrative. History was not merely a record of events, but a tool for ideological education, a means of legitimizing the present and shaping the future. Yet for ordinary citizens, time was also experienced in the rhythms of daily life. The long queues, the predictable work days, the cherished moments of leisure. The passage of time was marked not just by political events, but by personal milestones, births, marriages, deaths, and the quiet unfolding of individual lives. As we bring our journey to a close, let us reflect on the enduring legacy of the Soviet Union. It was a society that, for better or worse, profoundly shaped the lives of millions. It was a grand experiment, an attempt to build a new world based on revolutionary ideals. Its achievements were significant, particularly in areas like industrialization, education, and social welfare. Yet its failures were also profound, marked by political repression, economic inefficiency, and a disregard for individual liberties. The daily lives of ordinary Soviet citizens, with their struggles and triumphs, their hopes and fears, offer a nuanced perspective on this complex history. Their stories remind us that even within the most rigid of systems, human beings find ways to assert their individuality, to create meaning, and to forge connection. The echoes of their lives, their quiet resilience, continue to resonate, offering valuable lessons for understanding the complexities of human experience and the enduring quest for freedom and dignity. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and restful slumber. Good night. Let us now gently expand our narrative, delving deeper into the nuances of daily existence within the Soviet Union, exploring the subtle textures of life that often go unremarked in grand historical accounts. We have touched upon the communal apartment, the factory floor, and the broader societal structures. Now let us consider the smaller, more intimate details that painted the canvas of everyday life. Consider the rhythm of the seasons, which, in the vast expanse of the Soviet Union, played a profound role in shaping daily routines and cultural practices. The long, harsh winters, particularly in cities like Leningrad, brought with them a unique set of challenges and traditions. The biting cold necessitated layers of warm clothing, often made of sturdy wool or padded cotton. The short, dark days were illuminated by the glow of electric lights, often dim and flickering due to inconsistent power supply. Yet, winter also brought its own joys. The crisp, clean air after a snowfall, the opportunity for ice skating on frozen ponds, the warmth of a shared cup of tea by a crackling stove. The arrival of spring, with its melting snows and burgeoning greenery, was a moment of collective relief and renewed hope. Summer, though brief, was a time for outdoor activities, for trips to the dacha, for swimming in lakes and rivers. Autumn, with its golden hues and bountiful harvest, was a period of preparation for the coming winter, a time for preserving fruits and vegetables, for stocking up on essential supplies. The cyclical nature of the seasons provided a comforting predictability, a timeless rhythm that transcended political changes and economic fluctuation. Food, as we noted, was a constant preoccupation. Beyond the cues and the limited selection at the gastronome, the act of cooking and sharing meals was a central ritual of family life. Soviet cuisine, often characterized by its simplicity and reliance on staple ingredients, was also a testament to ingenuity and resourcefulness. Soups, stews, and porridges formed the backbone of many meals, supplemented by seasonal vegetables and, when available, meat or fish. The communal kitchen, despite its challenges, was often a hub of activity, filled with the aromas of simmering borscht, frying potatoes, and freshly baked bread. Recipes were passed down through generations, often adapted to accommodate available ingredients. The sharing of food, whether with family or neighbors, was an act of generosity and community, a way of strengthening bonds and alleviating the hardships of scarcity. The simple pleasure of a hot meal, shared with loved ones, was a profound comfort in a world that often felt cold and uncertain. Children's lives in the Soviet Union were shaped by a unique blend of collective upbringing and individual nurturing. From an early age, children were encouraged to participate in collective activities through kindergartens, pioneer camps, and Komsomol organizations. These institutions aimed to instill socialist values, to foster a sense of collective responsibility, and to prepare children for their roles as future builders of communism. Yet, within the family unit, children were cherished and loved, their individual needs and personalities nurtured. Playtime, though often structured, also allowed for moments of spontaneous joy and creativity. Simple toys, often handmade, sparked the imagination. Outdoor games, often played in communal courtyards, fostered a sense of camaraderie and teamwork. The stories told by grandparents, the songs sung by mothers, the lessons learned from fathers, these were the threads that wove the fabric of childhood, creating a rich tapestry of memories and experiences. The role of art and culture in daily life extended beyond official institutions. Amateur art groups, local theaters, and community centers provided opportunities for ordinary citizens to engage in creative expression. Singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, painting, and writing were popular pastimes, offering an outlet for individual talent and a sense of belonging to a larger creative community. These informal cultural activities, often less subject to official scrutiny, provided a space for genuine self-expression and a celebration of human creativity. The shared experience of creating and appreciating art fostered a sense of connection and a deeper understanding of the human condition. Fashion, though often dictated by practicality and limited availability, also played a role in individual expression. While official ideology discouraged excessive individualism and promoted a utilitarian approach to clothing, people found ways to express their personal style through subtle details. A colorful scarf, a unique brooch, a carefully tailored garment. The black market, as we noted, provided access to more fashionable items, often imported from the West, allowing those with connections or resources to express a greater degree of individuality. The act of dressing, even within the constraints of the system, was a small act of self-assertion, a way of signaling one's identity and aspirations. The concept of personal possessions, too, was nuanced. While the state promoted collective ownership and discouraged excessive materialism, individuals still valued their personal belongings. A treasured book, a family heirloom, a piece of furniture acquired after years of saving, these items held sentimental value and represented a sense of personal history and continuity. The acquisition of consumer goods, though challenging, was often a source of great satisfaction, a tangible reward for hard work and patience. The careful maintenance and repair of belongings, a necessity in a society of scarcity, fostered a sense of appreciation and resourcefulness. Social gatherings, whether formal or informal, were a vital part of Soviet life. Holidays, particularly New Year's Eve, were celebrated with elaborate feasts and festive decorations. Birthdays, weddings, and other personal milestones were occasions for family and friends to gather, to share food and drink, to sing songs, and to tell stories. These gatherings, often held in cramped apartments, were characterized by warmth, camaraderie, and a sense of shared humanity. They provided a space for people to relax, to connect with loved ones, and to escape the pressures of daily life. The toasts, the laughter, the heartfelt conversations, these were the moments that truly defined the richness of Soviet social life. The natural world, as we discussed, offered a profound sense of respite. Beyond the dacha, many Soviet citizens engaged in outdoor activities such as mushroom picking, berry gathering, and fishing. These activities, often passed down through generations, provided a connection to the land, a source of fresh food, and an opportunity for quiet contemplation. The vastness and beauty of the Soviet landscape, from the majestic forests to the serene lakes, offered a sense of peace and tranquility, a reminder of the enduring power of nature to heal and inspire. The simple act of walking through a forest, listening to the rustle of leaves and the chirping of birds, was a profound antidote to the stresses of urban life. The role of memory and history in shaping individual and collective identity was also significant. The official narrative of Soviet history, carefully constructed and constantly revised, sought to legitimize the present and guide the future. Yet, personal memories, often passed down through generations, offered alternative perspectives, unofficial histories that challenged the dominant narrative. The Great Patriotic War, in particular, left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness, shaping the experiences of generations and influencing attitudes towards sacrifice, resilience, and national pride. The act of remembering, whether individually or collectively, was a powerful way of connecting with the past, of understanding the present, and of shaping the future. As we continue our journey through the intricate layers of Soviet life, we begin to appreciate the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. Despite the challenges of political repression, economic hardship, and ideological control, ordinary citizens found ways to create meaning, to foster connections, and to live full and rich lives. Their stories, often untold in official histories, offer a profound testament to the enduring power of human agency, the ability to find joy, hope, and dignity even in the most challenging of circumstances. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and restful slumber. Good night. Let us now gently broaden our perspective, moving beyond the individual experience to consider the broader social structures and daily routines that characterize life in the Soviet Union across its various decades. The grand narrative of the Soviet experiment was built upon the idea of a planned economy, a system designed to eliminate the chaos of capitalism and ensure the equitable distribution of resources. Yet, the reality of this system was often far more complex and, at times, contradictory. Consider the daily commute, a universal experience that took on unique characteristics in the Soviet context. In major cities, public transportation was the lifeblood of urban mobility. Trams, trolleybuses, and the iconic Moscow metro transported millions of citizens to and from work, school, and various appointments. These modes of transport were often crowded, particularly during peak hours, fostering a strange sense of collective intimacy. Bodies pressed together, conversations murmured, and the rhythmic sway of the vehicle became a familiar backdrop to daily life. The metro stations, particularly in Moscow and Leningrad, were often architectural marvels, adorned with mosaics, sculptures, and grand chandeliers, designed to impress and inspire, to serve as underground palaces for the working class. They were a testament to Soviet ambition and a stark contrast to the often drab reality of the streets above. For those in rural areas, transportation was often more challenging, relying on less frequent bus services, shared rides, or even horse-drawn carts, reflecting the persistent disparities between urban and rural life. Consumer goods, or rather their scarcity, were a constant feature of Soviet life. While heavy industry flourished, producing steel, machinery, and military hardware, the production of consumer goods often lagged behind. This led to chronic shortages of everything from clothing and footwear to household appliances and personal care items. The state-run stores, where gastronomy offered a limited and often unpredictable selection. The arrival of a new shipment of desirable goods would trigger a flurry of activity, with queues forming quickly and word spreading rapidly through informal networks. Acquiring certain items often required patience, persistence, and a good network of connections, or BLAT. The black market, though officially condemned, thrived as a parallel economy, providing access to goods that were otherwise unavailable. These informal channels, while technically illegal, were often tolerated as a necessary means of supplementing the official distribution system. The pursuit of consumer goods became a kind of daily quest, a testament to the enduring human desire for comfort and convenience. Housing, as we have seen, underwent significant transformations throughout the Soviet era. The early years were characterized by communal living in communalkas, a pragmatic solution to severe housing shortages. While these shared apartments fostered a strong sense of community, they also presented significant challenges to privacy and personal space. The Khrushchev era brought a wave of mass housing construction with the rapid erection of Khrushchevkas, standardized apartment blocks designed to provide individual families with their own living spaces. While often small and built with an emphasis on speed over quality, these apartments represented a significant improvement in living standards for millions of Soviet citizens. They offered the longed-for privacy of one's own kitchen and bathroom, a tangible symbol of progress and a step towards a more comfortable life. As the decades progressed, housing standards continued to evolve, with later apartment blocks offering larger spaces and improved amenities, though the demand for better housing always outstripped supply. Healthcare, a cornerstone of the Soviet welfare state, was theoretically free and universally accessible. The system was organized around polyclinics, where citizens would receive primary care, and hospitals for more specialized treatments. Preventative medicine was emphasized, and regular checkups were encouraged. However, the quality of healthcare varied widely. While top-tier facilities and highly skilled specialists were available for party elites and those with connections, ordinary citizens often faced long waits, outdated equipment, and a shortage of essential medicines. The informal system of BLAT also extended to healthcare, with favors and gifts often exchanged for better treatment or quicker access to specialists. Despite these shortcomings, the principle of universal healthcare was deeply ingrained in the Soviet psyche, and for many, it represented a fundamental right and a source of security. Education was another area of significant investment and ideological importance. The Soviet Union achieved remarkable success in eradicating illiteracy and providing universal access to education, from primary school to university. The curriculum was highly standardized and ideologically driven, emphasizing scientific and technical subjects as well as Marxist-Leninist theory. Children were taught to be loyal citizens, to embrace collectivism, and to contribute to the building of communism. Pioneering Komsomol organizations played a crucial role in shaping youth, organizing extracurricular activities, and instilling socialist values. Despite the ideological constraints, Soviet education produced generations of highly skilled engineers, scientists, and intellectuals, contributing significantly to the nation's scientific and technological achievements. The pursuit of knowledge, even within the confines of a controlled environment, was highly valued, and academic success was a path to social mobility. Cultural life in the Soviet Union was a complex interplay of official promotion and unofficial expression. The state actively supported and promoted various art forms, from ballet and opera to literature and cinema, provided they adhered to the principles of socialist realism and served the ideological goals of the party. Artists and writers were often members of state-controlled unions, and their work was subject to censorship. Yet within these constraints, many talented individuals produced works of enduring artistic merit. Alongside the official culture, a vibrant underground scene often flourished. Samizdat, the clandestine circulation of forbidden literature, and Magnetized Dot, the sharing of unofficial music recordings, provided alternative outlets for creative expression and a subtle form of dissent. These unofficial cultural currents, though operating at risk, were a testament to the enduring human desire for freedom of thought and expression, a quiet rebellion against the uniformity imposed by the state. Sport was not merely a leisure activity, but a powerful tool for national prestige and ideological demonstration. Soviet athletes, meticulously trained and supported by the state, consistently excelled in international competitions, particularly in disciplines like gymnastics, ice hockey, and weightlifting. Their victories were celebrated as triumphs of the socialist system, showcasing the physical prowess and collective spirit of the Soviet people. Mass participation in sports was encouraged, with numerous sports clubs and facilities available to the general population. Physical culture was seen as an integral part of building the new Soviet man and woman, contributing to a healthy and productive workforce. Leisure time, though often limited by long working hours and the demands of daily life, was cherished. Weekends were often spent with family and friends, engaging in simple pleasures. Trips to the park, visits to the dacha, or gatherings at home for tea and conversation were common. The collective garden plots, often located on the outskirts of cities, provided an opportunity for urban dwellers to connect with nature, to grow their own food, and to escape the confines of apartment living. These small plots of land, often passed down through generations, were more than just gardens. They were places of refuge, where people could relax, socialize, and enjoy a degree of autonomy that was often absent in other aspects of their lives. The simple act of cultivating the land, of nurturing plants and harvesting produce, provided a tangible connection to the earth and a sense of self-sufficiency. Religious belief, though officially discouraged and often suppressed, persisted throughout the Soviet era. The state promoted atheism and actively persecuted religious institutions and believers, particularly during the early decade. Churches were closed, clergy were imprisoned, and religious practices were viewed with suspicion. Yet, for many, faith remained a deeply personal and enduring aspect of their lives. Religious holidays were often celebrated in secret, and traditions were passed down through generations, often in defiance of official prohibition. The resilience of religious belief in the face of state atheism is a testament to the enduring human need for spiritual meaning and connection, a quiet act of defiance against the all-encompassing power of the state. The quiet observance of religious rituals, the passing down of family traditions, and the clandestine gatherings of believers formed a hidden but persistent thread in the tapestry of Soviet life. The legal system, while theoretically based on principles of socialist legality, was often a tool of political control. Show trials, arbitrary arrests, and forced confessions were a grim reality, particularly during the Stalin era. Yet, even within this system, there were instances of ordinary citizens seeking justice, appealing to the authorities, and attempting to navigate the complexities of Soviet law. The legal system, like other aspects of Soviet life, was a reflection of the inherent contradictions of a society that sought to combine revolutionary ideals with authoritarian control. The concept of socialist legality was often invoked, but its application was frequently inconsistent and politically motivated, leading to a pervasive sense of legal uncertainty and a reliance on informal networks and personal connections to navigate the system. As the Soviet Union moved through its various phases, from the revolutionary fervor of the early years through the brutal purges of the Stalin era, the cautious thaw of Khrushchev, the stagnation of Brezhnev, and finally, the tumultuous reforms of Gorbachev, the human experience remained at its core.
The grand narratives of history, with their focus on political leaders and economic policies, often obscure the quiet, everyday lives of the millions of individuals who lived through these transformations.
It is in these personal stories, in the small acts of resilience, the subtle forms of resistance, the enduring bonds of family and friendship, that we find the true essence of what life was like in the Soviet Union. It was a life of contradictions, of hardship and hope, of conformity and quiet defiance. And as you reflect on these intricate layers of human experience, may your mind find a gentle path towards a deep and restorative sleep. Good night. Let us now gently expand our narrative, moving into the realm of social interactions and the subtle ways in which individuals navigated the complexities of Soviet society. Beyond the formal structures of the state and the party, a rich tapestry of informal relationships and unspoken rules governed daily life. These interactions, often overlooked in official histories, were crucial for survival, for maintaining a sense of community, and for preserving individual dignity. Consider the concept of общественность, or public spiritedness, which was heavily promoted by the state. Citizens were encouraged to participate in collective activities, to volunteer for community projects, and to contribute to the common good. Subbotniks, or voluntary Saturday workdays, were a common feature of Soviet life, where people would gather to clean parks, plant trees, or help with construction projects. While often framed as spontaneous expressions of civic duty, these events were frequently organized and supervised by party officials. Yet, even within this structured environment, individuals found ways to connect, to share stories, and to build camaraderie. The shared effort, the sense of contributing to something larger than oneself, could, at times, foster genuine feelings of collective purpose. Friendship, in the Soviet context, took on a particular significance. In a society where official channels were often unreliable and trust in institutions was sometimes limited, personal relationships became paramount. Friends were not just companions, they were a vital support system, a source of information, and a means of navigating the complexities of daily life. Favors were exchanged, resources were shared, and confidences were whispered in hushed tones. These networks of trust and reciprocity, often referred to as blat, were essential for acquiring scarce goods, securing better services, or simply getting things done. While officially condemned as a form of corruption, blat was an ingrained part of the system, a testament to the ingenuity of ordinary citizens in making ends meet. The workplace, beyond its primary function of production, also served as a crucial social hub. Factories, offices, and collective farms were not just places of labor, they were communities in themselves, where individuals spent a significant portion of their waking hours. Work collectives organized social events, cultural activities, and even provided access to goods and services that were otherwise difficult to obtain. The camaraderie among colleagues, the shared struggles and triumphs, often forged strong bonds of friendship and solidarity. The workplace was also a site of informal communication, where news and rumors circulated, and where individuals could express their opinions, often in veiled terms, about the state of affairs. Family life, as we have discussed, remained the cornerstone of Soviet society. Despite the challenges of communal living and economic hardship, families provided a vital source of emotional support and stability. The multi-generational household, with grandparents often playing a significant role in raising children, was a common feature. This extended family structure provided a strong sense of continuity and tradition, passing down values, stories, and practical skills from one generation to the next. Family celebrations, particularly New Year's Eve, were elaborate affairs, bringing relatives together for feasts, games, and heartfelt conversations. These moments of shared joy were essential for reinforcing family bonds and providing a sense of normalcy amidst the often challenging realities of Soviet life. The role of women in Soviet society was complex and often contradictory. Officially, women were equal to men, participating fully in the workforce and holding positions of responsibility in various fields, from engineering to medicine. The state provided child care facilities and maternity leave, aiming to liberate women from the burdens of domesticity. However, in practice, women often bore the double burden of full-time employment and primary responsibility for household chores and child care. The scarcity of consumer goods and labor-saving devices meant that domestic work was often arduous and time-consuming. Despite these challenges, Soviet women displayed remarkable resilience, strength, and resourcefulness, contributing significantly to the nation's economic and social development while also maintaining the fabric of family life. Children's lives were highly structured, from early childhood through adolescence. Kindergartens and nurseries provided care for young children, allowing mothers to work. School was compulsory, and the curriculum was standardized and ideologically driven. Pioneer and Komsomol organizations played a crucial role in shaping youth, organizing extracurricular activities, and instilling socialist values. Summer camps, often run by factories or collective farms, provided opportunities for children to spend time in nature, engage in sports, and participate in collective activities. Despite the emphasis on collective upbringing, individual nurturing within the family remained paramount, and parents strove to provide their children with the best possible opportunities, often making significant sacrifices to do so. Public holidays were important markers in the Soviet calendar, serving both as occasions for official celebrations and as opportunities for leisure and family gatherings. May Day, or International Workers' Day, was celebrated with parades and demonstrations, showcasing the achievements of the Soviet system. Victory Day, commemorating the Soviet Union's triumph over Nazi Germany in World War II, was a deeply emotional and patriotic holiday, a time for remembering sacrifices and celebrating national resilience. These holidays, while imbued with official meaning, also provided a welcome break from the daily grind, a chance for people to relax, socialize, and enjoy a sense of collective identity. The concept of dostupnost, or accessibility, was a key principle of Soviet social policy. The state aimed to provide universal access to basic necessities and services, including housing, health care, education, and culture. While the quality and availability of these services often varied, the principle of universal access was deeply ingrained in the Soviet psyche. This commitment to social welfare, however imperfectly realized, provided a sense of security and a belief in the state's responsibility for the well-being of its citizens. This was a stark contrast to the perceived inequalities and uncertainties of capitalist societies, and for many it was a source of genuine pride. As we continue to explore the intricate layers of Soviet life, we begin to appreciate the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. Despite the challenges of political repression, economic hardship, and ideological control, ordinary citizens found ways to create meaning, to foster connections, and to live full and rich lives. Their stories, often untold in official histories, offer a profound testament to the enduring power of human agency, the ability to find joy, hope, and dignity even in the most challenging of circumstances. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and restful slumber. Good night. Let us now gently broaden our perspective further, moving beyond the immediate sphere of personal and social interactions to consider the broader systems and cultural currents that shaped the Soviet experience. The vastness of the Soviet Union, encompassing diverse geographies, climates, and ethnic groups, meant that while certain aspects of daily life were universal, there were also significant regional variations and unique cultural expressions. Consider the role of public spaces. Beyond the home and the workplace, parks, squares, and cultural centers served as important arenas for social interaction and leisure. City parks, often meticulously maintained, provided green oases for relaxation, strolls, and informal gathering. Statues and monuments, often depicting revolutionary heroes or socialist achievements, served as constant reminders of the official ideology. Squares were often the sites of parades, demonstrations, and public celebrations, particularly on major holidays like May Day and Victory Day. Cultural centers, or houses of culture, provided a wide range of activities, from amateur theater groups and dance classes to lectures and film screenings. These public spaces, while often designed to promote collective values, also offered opportunities for individual expression and informal social connection. The arts, as we have discussed, were subject to strict ideological control, yet they also played a vital role in shaping Soviet identity and providing a source of national pride. Soviet cinema, for instance, produced a rich body of work from epic historical dramas to heartwarming comedies, often imbued with socialist messages but also showcasing remarkable artistic talent. The Soviet circus, with its dazzling acrobats, clowns, and animal acts, was a beloved form of entertainment, enjoyed by audiences of all ages. Music, from classical compositions to folk songs, was widely performed and appreciated, often reflecting the diverse cultural traditions of the Soviet republics. Even within the confines of socialist realism, artists found ways to express universal human emotions and to create works of enduring beauty. Science and technology were areas of immense national pride and significant investment. The Soviet Union made remarkable strides in fields like space exploration, nuclear physics, and engineering, often driven by military and ideological imperatives. The launch of Sputnik in 1957, the first artificial satellite, was a moment of immense global significance, demonstrating Soviet technological prowess and challenging American scientific dominance. These achievements were widely celebrated, reinforcing the narrative of a technologically advanced and forward-looking socialist society. Scientists and engineers, though often working under strict state control, were highly respected and enjoyed a privileged status in society. Their work was seen as contributing directly to the building of communism and the advancement of humanity. The media, as a tool of state control, played a pervasive role in shaping public opinion and disseminating official narratives. Newspapers like Pravda and Izvestia were the primary sources of information, their pages filled with reports of production successes, political pronouncements, and international events, all presented through an ideologically approved lens. Radio broadcasts reached even the most remote corners of the vast country, bringing news, music, and cultural programs to every home. Television, though a later development, quickly became a powerful medium for mass communication, bringing images of Soviet achievements and official events directly into people's living rooms. While censorship was ever present and alternative viewpoints were suppressed, the media also served as a source of entertainment and a means of connecting citizens to the broader Soviet project. Sport, as we have noted, was not merely a leisure activity, but a powerful tool for national prestige and ideological demonstration. Beyond the elite athletes who excelled in international competitions, mass participation in sports was actively encouraged. Physical culture was seen as an integral part of building the new Soviet man and woman, contributing to a healthy and productive workforce. Sports clubs, gymnasiums, and stadiums were widely available, and physical education was a compulsory part of the school curriculum. Sporting events, from local competitions to national championships, were popular spectacles, fostering a sense of collective identity and national pride. The emphasis on physical fitness and collective achievement reflected the broader socialist ideals of a strong and healthy society. The military, a powerful and omnipresent institution, played a significant role in Soviet life. Conscription was mandatory for all young men, and military service was seen as a patriotic duty. The armed forces were not merely a defensive force. They were also a tool for projecting Soviet power and influence on the global stage. Military parades, particularly on Victory Day, were grand spectacles showcasing the might of the Soviet Army and reinforcing a sense of national unity and strength. The military also played a role in civilian life, assisting with construction projects, agricultural campaigns, and disaster relief efforts. The image of the soldier, disciplined and dedicated, was often held up as an ideal for young people to emulate. The concept of the collective permeated every aspect of Soviet life, from the communal apartment to the collective farm, from the factory brigade to the pioneer organization. The individual was expected to subordinate their own interests to the needs of the collective, and collective responsibility was emphasized. This collectivist ethos, while often leading to a suppression of individual initiative and creativity, also fostered a strong sense of mutual support and solidarity. In times of hardship, individuals often relied on their collective for assistance, whether it was sharing food, lending a helping hand, or offering emotional support. The collective, in its ideal form, was meant to be a source of strength and security, a refuge from the uncertainties of individual existence. However, the reality of collectivism was often more complex. The emphasis on collective responsibility could also lead to a diffusion of accountability, and the suppression of individual initiative could stifle innovation and efficiency. The constant pressure to conform could lead to a sense of alienation and a suppression of personal expression. Yet, for many, the collective provided a sense of belonging and purpose, a feeling of being part of something larger than oneself. The shared struggles and triumphs, the camaraderie and mutual support often forged strong bonds among individuals, creating a unique social fabric that was both supportive and demanding. As we continue our gentle journey through the intricate layers of Soviet life, we begin to appreciate the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. Despite the challenges of political repression, economic hardship, and ideological control, ordinary citizens found ways to create meaning, to foster connections, and to live full and rich lives. Their stories, often untold in official histories, offer a profound testament to the enduring power of human agency, the ability to find joy, hope, and dignity even in the most challenging of circumstances. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and restful slumber. Good night. Let us now delve into the quieter corners of Soviet life, exploring the personal rituals and small pleasures that punctuated the daily routines of ordinary citizens. Beyond the grand narratives of industrialization and ideological struggle, life unfolded in a myriad of small, intimate moments, each contributing to the unique texture of the Soviet experience. Consider the simple act of reading. In a society where information was tightly controlled, books held a special significance. Libraries were popular, and reading was a cherished pastime. Despite censorship, the classics of Russian literature as well as approved foreign works were widely read and discussed. The act of reading offered an escape into different worlds, a source of intellectual stimulation, and a means of connecting with universal human experiences. People often shared books, passing them from hand to hand, fostering a sense of intellectual community. The quiet rustle of pages, the gentle turning of a well-worn cover, the absorption in a story, these were moments of profound peace and personal enrichment. Music, too, played a significant role in daily life. Beyond the official concerts and state-sponsored ensembles, music was a constant companion in homes and public spaces. Radios, though often tuned to state-controlled stations, brought classical music, folk songs, and approved popular tunes into every household. Amateur musicians gathered to play traditional instruments, and singing was a common pastime at family gatherings and social events. The melodies of folk songs, often imbued with a sense of melancholy and resilience, resonated deeply with the Soviet soul. The quiet hum of a radio, the gentle strumming of a guitar, the harmonious blend of voices, these were the sounds that filled the air, creating a comforting backdrop to daily life. The ritual of tea drinking was another deeply ingrained aspect of Soviet culture. Tea was more than just a beverage, it was a symbol of hospitality, a catalyst for conversation, and a source of warmth and comfort. The samovar, a traditional Russian tea urn, was often a cherished family heirloom passed down through generations. Tea was served strong and black, often accompanied by sugar, jam, or small pastries. The act of sharing tea, whether with family or friends, was a moment of connection, a time for quiet conversation, for sharing news and gossip, and for simply being together. The gentle clinking of teacups, the comforting aroma of brewing tea, the warmth of the mug in one's hands, these were the small sensory details that contributed to a sense of well-being and camaraderie. Personal appearance, while often constrained by limited choices and a focus on practicality, still held significance. While high fashion was largely absent, people found ways to express their individuality through subtle details. A carefully chosen scarf, a unique piece of jewelry, a well-maintained coat, these were the small touches that allowed individuals to assert their personal style. The act of mending and repairing clothes, a necessity in a society of scarcity, fostered a sense of resourcefulness and appreciation for one's belongings. The simple act of grooming, of ensuring one's clothes were clean and presentable, was a quiet act of self-respect, a way of maintaining dignity in a world that often sought to homogenize. The concept of dacha life, as we have briefly touched upon, was a profound escape from the urban grind and the pressures of official life. The small country house, or plot of land, often acquired after years of waiting, became a sanctuary, a place where people could connect with nature, cultivate their own food, and enjoy a degree of autonomy. The rhythmic digging and planting in the garden, the quiet contemplation amidst the trees, the simple pleasure of a meal cooked outdoors, these were the moments that offered respite and rejuvenation. The dacha was a place where the rules of Soviet life seemed to loosen, where people could speak more freely, where the bonds of friendship and family were strengthened through shared labor and leisure. It was a place where the human spirit could breathe, a small island of freedom in a sea of control. Collecting as a hobby was a quiet passion for many. Stamps, coins, postcards, and even matchbox labels were meticulously gathered and organized. These collections, often exchanged and discussed among fellow enthusiasts, provided a sense of order and control in a world that often felt chaotic. They were a source of personal satisfaction, a way of engaging with the world beyond the immediate confines of daily life, and a means of connecting with like-minded individuals. The careful handling of each item, the quiet contemplation of its history and significance, the satisfaction of completing a set, these were the small joys that enriched the lives of many. The art of conversation, particularly in informal settings, was highly valued. In a society where public discourse was often constrained, private conversations became a vital space for genuine exchange. Friends and family would gather in kitchens, sharing tea and stories, discussing the day's events, and exchanging rumors and gossip. These conversations, often characterized by a blend of humor, cynicism, and deep philosophical reflection, allowed people to process their experiences, to articulate their thoughts, and to maintain a sense of intellectual vitality. The quiet murmur of voices, the shared laughter, the knowing glances, these were the subtle cues that signaled a space of trust and intimacy. Even the simple act of walking, particularly in the vast and often beautiful landscapes of the Soviet Union, offered moments of quiet contemplation and connection with the natural world. A stroll through a city park, a hike in the countryside, or a walk along a riverbank. These were opportunities to clear the mind, to observe the changing seasons, and to appreciate the beauty of the world. The rhythmic pace of footsteps, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, these were the sounds that accompanied moments of solitude and reflection, providing a sense of peace and tranquility. As we continue our gentle journey through the intricate layers of Soviet life, we begin to appreciate the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. Despite the challenges of political repression, economic hardship, and ideological control, ordinary citizens found ways to create meaning, to foster connections, and to live full and rich lives. Their stories, often untold in official histories, offer a profound testament to the enduring power of human agency, the ability to find joy, hope, and dignity even in the most challenging of circumstances. And now, as the night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, may these reflections guide you into a deep and restful slumber. Good night.